this is going to work. Peace be with you, and also with you. My name is Laura Mayo, and I'm the senior minister here at Covenant Church, and I'm honored to welcome you here this morning as we gather to remember Patricia Dale Summerlin Martin. We are live streaming, and if you do not have a seat, you can go next door to the fellowship hall just across this walkway and sit in the fellowship hall and watch the live stream. We are here to remember, to grieve, to celebrate Patricia's life, her impact, her tremendous love. Pat went by many names. Pat, Patricia, Tricia. I called her Pat. In addition to these various forms of the name Patricia, we have also known her as wife and mother, grandmother, sister, aunt, colleague. We've known her as deacon, book club member, friend. And now we all know Pat in a new way. She is no longer with us physically, but her impact on our lives continues. In this memorial service and in the days and weeks and years to come, as memories of Patricia come to you, welcome them and cherish them. Give them a place of honor next to your grief. We're glad you're here.
Will you bow with me? You who brought creation into being, including all gathered here and those who came before us beyond memory, we've come today to remember one of your remarkable creatures, Patricia Dale Summerlin Martin, one whose life reminds us that flawed and quirky as we are, you have told us we are made in your image. A mirror of life itself, this occasion is cause for both sorrow and joy. We acknowledge that we wish our relationships to last forever. We also know that those relationships end, and usually too soon. Beyond lies the mystery of how, as reflections of your eternal being, you gather us back to yourself, so that the billions of smaller images become again part of the whole. We give thanks for Patricia's life, which was gracious, and for the good that accompanied it through nearly 9 decades. Sustain all of us who continue in this arc of life, and may it be animated by the Spirit you have placed in us, a Spirit that declares itself unalterably committed to the purposes of love. My prayer is through Christ. Amen.
My big sister Patricia left for college when I was 2 weeks old, so we didn't really ever live in the same house. But luckily for me, we had plenty of adult years to become close and share many happy times, common interests, and wonderful conversations. She was always gracious, welcoming, social, an honest and intelligent thinker. And as a woman whose adulthood saw dramatic changes in attitudes toward women and their societal roles, Tricia modeled for me being both a joyful maintainer of loving traditions and a gentle yet persistent pusher of boundaries. I think these two readings reflect all of that. The first is from Worship for All Seasons. Patricia read it here at Covenant when she was worship leader on the Sunday after the 2020 election. Break up the hard-packed soil of our nation, God, and let there be shoots of new life. Deliver us from the narrow ways that speak of we and they, that rest upon ignorance or apathy. Deliver us from silence when faithful people must speak out, when old truths need repeating and division may be bridged by insight. Deliver us from the noise of too much busyness with too little purpose, from pleasure-seeking that is self-centered rather than renewing, from wealth while much of the world is impoverished. Prepare us for the peace that grows out of reconciliation, for the change that matters and is constructive, and for the service that binds us into human community. Amen. This second reading was written by Patricia herself. It is from her doctoral dissertation about, in her words, how deeply committed, highly competent Texas Southern Baptist women determined to use, legitimize, and gain recognition for their efforts to serve God had to struggle against patriarchal forces equally determined to prevent those efforts, or at least to keep them hidden. Here is her work's final paragraph. Ultimately, liberation should not be just the elimination of restrictions and the destruction of old beliefs and traditions, but must entail the embracing of something new, a superior possibility for human fulfillment. I contend that real fulfillment includes a commitment to shape a better world with other human beings who share one's vision and social goals. The historical women I have studied know about this experience and have something to transmit to men and to other women about finding satisfaction through hard work, even hidden work, shared with other humans of both sexes for goals that transcend self-preoccupation and isolation. This is the kind of liberation that will truly free people, free them to cooperate in bringing about the cultural revolution that must take place for the technological age to assume humane dimensions.
Let's see, is this on? I don't think so. I don't think so. I'll use this. Okay. Or is there a way to turn it on? It is, yeah. This is fun. It was that easy. It was an on switch. Okay. We are the seven of the 9 people lucky enough to call Patricia Martin our grandmother. And, well, we all actually call her different things. I call her Trish, others call her Mimali and Me Mama. But odds are, if this group were all in a room together and Trish called out for sugar, we would all turn our heads. And we are going to now present to you Philippians 4, verses 8 and 9, one of Patricia's favorites. And you will surely see that every adjective you're about to hear could be ascribed to our wonderful grandmother.
Finally, beloved, whatever is true, whatever is honorable,
Whatever is just, whatever is pure,
Whatever is pleasing, whatever is commendable.
If there is any excellence and if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things.
keep on doing the things that you have learned and received and heard and seen in me.
And the God of peace will be with you.
These are our sacred stories.
One of the many gifts that Pat gave me was time spent together discussing her book, Hidden Work. We would sometimes not make it beyond a paragraph in the time we had given ourselves in that day to discuss and digest. She said many times that the time we spent together discussing her content and our ideas was like being in graduate school again. It was for me too. We had a routine. I would come to the house and Pat and I would spend about an hour delving into women and religious life, and then Pat would allow Bill to leave his office and come down the hall and make us drinks and join us. If he arrived too soon, she would send him back. Pat and I found much continuity with the historical women she studied and with each other. We were all of us trying in our younger years to find a way as women in a patriarchal religious system. The brave women she discovered and studied found ways to create community, to lead, to empower, to make change. Change. Pat was so keenly aware of the price of change. She said many times how difficult change is when you've already invested so much of your life in something. Pat faced this difficulty many times as her theology shifted. In the margin of my copy of Pat's book, I have a quote by her. She said, "I knew I had to make changes when I realized the Bible is not a rule book. It's a book of stories that reveal God." Pat was brave and wise and attentive to details. On one of my visits, when Bill brought us drinks, he also brought Christmas cocktail napkins. It was not December, and he was sent back to the kitchen for appropriate napkins. It took a few times to get the right kind. Pat had standards. She had expectations. She spent a lot of time planning this service. Over the last many, many months, each time I saw her, which was almost weekly, she would mention aspects of her memorial service that needed to be a certain way. She wanted us to sing, for example, for all the saints. She wanted me to give the homily, and for the scripture to be just as you heard it read. She wanted her siblings to have a role. She gave careful attention to this service, which is not a surprise to any of us. Pat was discerning. She cared about how things were done. She noticed typos. She wanted to use the proper glasses and napkins. Careful attention made Pat an excellent writer, administrator, dean, associate vice president. It was also her guide as she reviewed restaurants for Houston City, Texas Monthly, and My Table magazines. Discernment helped her support and guide Rice students involved in study abroad programs. It gave her the keen eye for design and decoration so effectively displayed at the Wimberley House. Pat was attentive to details and deliberate, and she was also trusting. As we made plans for this service, she would say an element she wanted, and then she would add, Ask Tim, he'll know what to do. Or just let Bill decide, he knows me well. Or Laura, you always do a good job, you'll know what to say. One day she said, all of my children are so very capable, I don't need to tell them what to include. She trusted us. She trusted Bill and her children and her siblings. She trusted her grandchildren and great-grandchildren and her friends. She trusted us. She knew with unwavering sureness that we would be able to remember her well. That never wavered on Philippians 4:8 and 9. I asked her many times what touched her about this verse, or these verses. And she would always respond with some version of, it tells us the right way to be in the world. And indeed it does. Beloved, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure and pleasing, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things, and the God of peace will be with you. Indeed, the God of peace is with us. As you heard when Carol read from Pat's book, Pat saw very clearly that liberation is found in community when people are committed to shaping a better world and cooperating to bring humane dimensions to our technological age. Change is possible. Yes, it's hard, how well Pat knew. A better world is attainable. Pat guides us in her discerning way toward community and cooperation. She encourages us, as the passage in the Bible she so loved does, to think on the things that are pleasing and commendable. Surely we're invited to follow Pat's example and turn our attention to the things that really matter, to where we see action that's worthy of respect, to places where justice is done, to goodness in all its forms. This attention that Pat modeled so well does not ignore what is wrong. Rather, it gives us the courage to change. This is the embodiment of discernment, of knowing what should receive our attention and our efforts. Pat inspired us. She listened to us, she loved us, she trusted us. Her attentiveness to people and to the good and beautiful in life was a gift to each one of us. We will miss her. We need to walk with our sadness and feel it, to lean into our grief. This is hard. Change always is. Our memories will help us. Rituals like lighting a candle when we're thinking of Pat and missing her will help. Talking about Patricia and sharing stories and memories will help. Grief is not something we get over. And that's good news, because love never dies. So Pat goes with us. She is now wherever we are. She lives on in our memories and in our love. Thanks be to God. Amen.
Thank you, J.C. Grannis, for that. Patricia first heard him play that piece some time ago, and she turned to Bill and said, I want that played at my funeral service. Amid all the sham and tinsel that calls itself reality these days, to be in the presence of such sound, such beauty, reminds you of what reality is all about. I'm Tim Summerlin, the most presentable of Patricia's three brothers, if you will. And I'm here to speak a few words. Happily, today you're going to hear several people, and you already have the wonderful words of Laura, who have remembrances of Patricia. This particular one comes from the perspective of one of her siblings, that group of 6 people who entered the world from 1937 to 1955. Patricia was, of course, the first, and in so many ways, the leader. Her parents had high expectations of her, and she met them in many ways. Oh, there was the occasional slip, as when she was caught reading From Here to Eternity against parental advice. Well, she was only 6 at the time, so oh no. But she'd set a high standard, and those who followed struggled to live up to it. Some really struggled, but no names today. Somehow I don't think that any of us held it against her. She was who she was so naturally, no one could accuse her of being a fake. And she was generous to her younger siblings. In the early years, at bedtime, the parents had left, the 3 oldest would gather to share their experiences of the day on their various make-believe jobs. Patricia's stories of the clueless Mrs. Potato, her colleague, entertained Phil and Robin. On in life, the kindnesses that she showed to all of the younger 5, to their spouses and their children and their extended families, were abundant. Tasteful gifts, delicious meals, invitations of all sorts. She was an unabashed extrovert in a family of introverts, and we were all blessed by that fact. She was indeed the model matriarch. Her beautiful obituary conveys her character well, and I would add just a few additional facts, these from Patricia herself. Many of you may know that for years, the 6 of us siblings and spouses have gathered at Brother Robin's farm near Woodville each February for a weekend, Siblings Weekend, and later expanded to another one in October because we just couldn't get enough of one another. We cooked our meals, rambled about, talked around the fire pit, sipped a little more, played a series of clever games that were Carol's specialty. Often those games dealt with quizzes, matching us with composers or writers of like personality, or self-descriptions that we provided. Now, all of these were presented, as I say, in the form of quizzes, though with this group, competition was never a part of the atmosphere. Patricia was matched with Charles Dickens, who comprehended human nature so well. She paired up with Mozart, who could do it all, in spite of a little flakiness. Her comfort food was confirmed to be a chocolate milkshake. Songs that she chose to convey herself included "June is busting out all over." They can't take that away from me. And "How deep is the ocean?" She was self-confessedly the least likely of any of us to touch any feathered creature, and the most likely to make travel plans based on food opportunities. Now, those traits may not reveal all, but they certainly say much about how she saw herself. One other trait I must name, and it's been suggested by a previous speaker, that Tricia was a pioneer. She led the way to college, to independence, to marriage, to parenthood, to professional accomplishments. These reminiscences focus on core family, but it was Patricia who brought a near teenager, Bill Martin, into the family. As powerful a shot of B12 as you could find. And as they launched a new generation, it was clear that Patricia and Bill would be the models of change, expansion, new perspectives, and 65 years, 3 succeeding generations confirm that fact. Not forgetting you, Dean Patrick Connors. Now, these comments, I believe, are accurate and relevant in portraying Patricia, but somehow they seem sketchy, inadequate. Others will fill out the picture. And I would just like to conclude by saying this. Patricia was a good person, a good human being. And I use that phrase as I understand Martha Nussbaum to use it in a passage shared at one of our Woodville weekends by Brother Phil some time ago. It goes like this. To be a good human being is to have a kind of openness to the world, an ability to trust uncertain things beyond your control that can lead you to be shattered in very extreme circumstances in which you're not to blame. That says something very important about the human condition of the ethical life, that it is based on a trust of the uncertain and on a willingness to be exposed. It's based more on being like a plant than like a jewel, something rather fragile, but whose very particular beauty is inseparable from fragility. Patricia lived with openness. She experienced fragility, and her life had the beauty of a flowering plant.
Thanks to you, Bill, and your family for asking me to talk about Patricia's stellar career at Rice University. Though I knew you and Patricia for many years, it was not until she finished her doctorate degree at Rice in 1982 that we enlisted her, my office and myself, to be a program director in what was then called the Office of Continuing Studies. She was perfect for the role. Her friendships with so many Rice faculty, her organizational skills, her creativity, and her poise served her and continuing studies very well. During that time, she created several programs that were successful, and for 2 summers managed one of our huge programs, the Rice University Publishing Program. As many as 100 students each year spent 4 intensive weeks on campus to learn from both book and magazine experts from New York City, the West Coast, and Texas. It was a total immersion program for the students and for Patricia. They worked from early morning to late at night. The program was founded by Mike Levy, the Texas Monthly founding publisher, and Bill Broyles, the founding editor and a Rice alum. And they came down periodically to check on things going and how they were going. It was the only program of its kind in the Southwest, and it got dozens of students ready to start their careers in book and magazine publishing. At that same time, she and I were both anonymous reviewers of Houston restaurants for Texas Monthly magazine. She reviewed other publications. During that period, she also accompanied Bill to houses of worship throughout the state. He had a column in Texas Monthly where he would critique their sermons, their ambiance, their music, their ceremonies, and he would, of course, be reviewing with her at Houston restaurants. Recently, Bill told me that he thinks she preferred visiting restaurants over visiting churches. Perhaps more interested about this sensuous rather than the spiritual, I'm not sure. When the job of, Rice job of Director of Student Affairs came open at Rice, I knew if she applied, she would get the job. In a way, it was an expansion of what she had done when she was a co-master at Sid Richardson College. And she loved young students. She thought they were great. She loved to be supportive of them. So as hard as it was to lose her, I knew that working with undergraduates would be her happiest role. So I had to encourage her. From that position, she became the Dean of Undergraduate Students, one of the first women dean on campus. And she went on to become the Associate Vice President for Student Affairs before retiring in 1999. During her tenure in these roles, Patricia also saw the merit of studying abroad. Many of our students at Rice were Texas-born and Texas-bred, and really did not have an appreciation or understanding of the richness of other cultures beyond Texas. With her efforts, at one point, nearly half of the students at Rice had had an out-of-the-country educational experience before they graduated. You have probably read about many or all of Patricia's accomplishments, but you probably don't know that it was Patricia who had the idea for what resulted in the wildly successful Rice Student Volunteer Program, RSVP it was called. It engaged students in thousands of hours annually in a vast myriad of projects with the broader community in Houston. When George Rupp came to Rice as our 4th president, he made RSVP part of his outreach goals and made the program part of the Standing Committee for Outreach, administered by Continuing Studies, which he renamed a school and then appointed me as dean. Patricia was a gifted, kind human being who made every moment count, and everyone she touched, the better for it. It was an honor to know her.
Hi, everyone. My name is Samantha Martin. I am Patricia's first granddaughter, and this is Cleo, her first great-granddaughter. Here, you can stand on that bench, hon. And when I was 16 years old, Trish came to visit my family in California. And in the morning, I found out that the musical that my school was going to do was going to be South Pacific. And yeah, in a second, sweetie. You got it. Yeah, work with me. I found out it was going to be South Pacific. I knew nothing about this musical besides, I guess, pretty good shot it was going to take place in South Pacific. But I remember telling Trish that we were going to do South Pacific, and she just went, "Ooh!" and slapped her leg. And she then proceeded to completely sing and talk me through the entire story of South Pacific. It was just magical. It was glorious. And then that night, we watched Meet Me in St. Louis for the first time. And, the famous scene where Judy Garland is singing Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas to her little sister in the movie. And she's just looking up at her with so much love and admiration, this little girl. And I said, well, Trish, you were my Judy Garland this morning. And so Trish wanted another Judy Garland song to be sung today. And so you'll know it. Here it is. Stand up so you can. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby.
Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to, dreams that you do come true.
Sing together now. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Go ahead.
Fly over the rainbow, wide and high.
Ready?
If happy little sky beyond the rainbow, wide and
Wow, thanks, Samantha and Cleo, and I'll even give Jeff some grudging props. No, first, thanks to all of you for your friendship and support. It has been a gigantic blessing to our family, obviously. So, God bless Mom. If you knew Mom, I know a lot of y'all did, or you've heard the great comments today, or maybe you didn't know Mom and just read her obituary. I should probably say paged through her obituary. Or the takeaway I think would be, wow, heavy intellectual. And I think that's right. Her two sisters and three brothers are all exactly the same, honestly. And my lifetime observation from a distance of sort of that intellectual life is it could be tricky. I can see how it can make your life easier for sure in some ways and maybe more rewarding. Conversely, I can see how it could make some things more difficult. About 3 months ago, I actually read a Bible verse that picks up my take on this. I'm not a Bible scholar, but I liked it, and it summarizes my view. It's old school, Moses, Deuteronomy, chapter 11, and the verse is, "Behold, I set before you the blessing and the curse." Fortunately, Mom did not agree with me about this at all. Not in the slightest. She did have her interests. She had causes. She had things she was concerned about. But really, she was, if you knew her, a joyful person. I don't think she didn't let things anchor her down. She liked to laugh and sing, and y'all may amplify on that some. But she, that was her nature. She liked to do things that everybody likes to do. She liked to get dressed up fancy and go out on big occasions. She loved to go to thrift stores and try to find herself a deal. Her parents were very big on the value of a dollar, and she was listening. Nor was Mom perfect. I noticed when she had something staring her in the face that she didn't necessarily want to do, which would probably involve research and writing, something like that, she could procrastinate the heck out of that project. Like mother, like son. So most of all, Mom really loved to talk. When she and Dad crossed paths in Abilene in 1957, it was a conversational showdown. Dad had a lot going on back in 1957. He had a well-honed magic and juggling act, which right then and there made him very popular with the ladies. Like, he was the MC for the Abilene Christian Wildcat Band. He could recite, and I think Dad's sister Helen, who's here, probably has heard this, he could recite a long epic poem about the siege of the Alamo. He had a little humor column for the Abilene Christian paper called the Humor Door, little play on words there. And Dad could and would give a speech at the drop of a hat. He could go highbrow on it, or he could drop it way down and make it be a joke fest, but he had it all. And of course, Dad being 19 then, he'd already been preaching, 3 or 4 years. And I think this is literally true, because Dad and I have talked about this, that he kept like a standby sermon, in his coat pocket in case he ever got the call. About 3 years ago, Mom was in the hospital and not doing well, and when I visited with Dad, I said, "Dad, I know this isn't big consolation, but I think you and Mom have probably talked, 10 times more than the average couple." For real. I mean, nothing was left unsaid. You did not get cheated. Mom always had our back, which I know we all appreciated, and sometimes we needed her to rein Dad in a little bit. It was a little more than 50 years ago, early 70s, probably 1972, I found myself with my family, I think Dale was there, at a Hare Krishna service at an old hippie house in Montrose. So this is about 1952. And the Hare Krishna guys, they were mighty happy to see us. They were probably shocked, but there we were. And I honestly don't know exactly why we were there, but I have a suspicion. Which Dad has always kept a long to-do list. I'm sure you can picture that. And I think some of the things on there are very mundane, I'm sure, like, check the AC filter. I think other things on the to-do list are very ambitious goals. And Dad has a lot of big goals, and including but not limited to, really trying to make the world a better place, which he has. Anyway, we're at the Hare Krishna meeting. The guys are dancing and chanting. It's pretty awkward. I think they have like finger symbols or, and we're sitting on the floor, pretty groovy, maybe with pillows. And towards the end of the service, it was gonna y'all gonna stick around for the meal, something like that. And I'm sitting there thinking, I can't believe I'm here. Like, in a million years, none of my friends would, they would never be here. No, there's my friend Greg Parton from 1972. I was like, none of the guys I played baseball with, under any circumstance, could ever possibly be here. But here I am. Anyway, I got Mom's attention somehow, and the message was, we need to get out of Dodge. And I think that she finally leveled with Dad, like, Bill, we're going to leave now. Anyway, last thing. Again, Mom really, really liked to talk. And I've gotten to talk to her a bunch the last couple years. And her favorite thing, I think, to talk about was family dynamics, extended family dynamics. Just things like, how is the younger generation like the older generation? How may they be different? How did people obtain their values? That kind of thing. If you knew Mom, she could really drill down on this subject. She would say, here's a typical type thing she would say. She'd say, Rex, out of all your cousins, I think your cousin Josh is the most like my grandfather, Floyd Merwin. And then she would amplify on that and give, kind of give some reasoning. She would talk about relationships, not gossiping. Mom was not a gossiper whatsoever. But she would go to the relationship, arena, and I have reason to believe that in the past she's talked to my wife, Mary, and, what is it you like, what is it you like about Rex? Which unfortunately leads to the logical flip side, where is it that Rex could be improved? The last couple years especially, when I would see family somewhere, of course they ask, how's your mom doing? And I would typically say, and I was happy to talk about it and thankful, I'd say, appreciate that. And, we'd laugh and I'd say, Mom, I've gotten to talk to Mom a lot. Her filter has worn down. It's pretty paper thin, but, we're having good conversations. And then I'd get a chuckle because I'd say, one thing that's really coming through when I talk to Mom is it's good to be a Summerlin. It's good to be in the Summerlin family. But Dad, I want you to know she also thought it was very good to be a Martin.
Hi, I'm Jeff, the second son. I'm honored to share a few memories of my mom. I'll start with one of my first memories, period. I was probably 3, and we were walking across some parking lot in Boston, and my dad had me, and Rex was with my mom. They were a little ahead of us, and my mom was, though she was wearing high heels, she was sort of skipping a little to make it fun, and she looking very pretty and well-groomed, and, a bit jealous. I wondered what she was doing with my dad. And now look, I need to say right here that my dad's my hero. I admire him more for how he's taken care of my mom than I've ever admired anyone for anything. But that said, you have to understand that in 1964, he looked pretty much the same as he does now. Well, actually, considering then that he didn't have the mustache and he wore horn-rimmed glasses, he might have looked a little less youthful in his late 20s. But, why did my mom choose him? And of course, I realize since it's likely his irresistible manly ways, but at the time I thought, I guess she's just really nice. And to be honest, I'm still not 100% sure that's the wrong guess. But anyway, nobody ever wondered what my dad saw in her. And he had a very good line in his toast to her at their 50th anniversary party. He said, sensuousness is a package deal, and it's wonderful to be married to somebody who holds up pictures in food magazines and goes, ooh. Well, now, she was equally passionate about music. Around 1980, she and I went to Jones Hall to see Steve Lawrence and Edie Gourmet. It was a great show. And at one point, Steve had the stage to himself. They brought down the lights, and he started singing the old ballad, Time After Time. And he really stretched out that first line. He's just kind of going, he's going time after time. And he had this fantastic, rich voice. And I can just so picture my mom sinking into her seat and murmuring, oh my. So the things she appreciated, she really felt in a deep part of herself. A few years after that, in the mid-'80s, she went to the Carlisle Supper Club near the Galleria to do a restaurant review. I went with my dad, and the musical act was some incarnation of the Platters. And at one point, they went out in the audience to see if folks wanted to sing a line of the song, Who's Sorry Now? And if you were to rank our family by how much we seek the spotlight, my mom would be in the lower half. But when her turn came, she obligingly sang the first line, Who's sorry now? And she has a lovely voice. And the audience perked up, like, oh, she's good. And so they kept the microphone there, and it'll surprise no one, she knew all the words. So they let her sing the entire song. And when she finished, the crowd went wild. And the Platter said, we have just found a new star in Houston, Texas. So Mom liked that story. We were all happy she had that opportunity to shine. And I bet the Carlisle got a good review. And so just one more. Most of you know that my folks were dorm parents at Sid Richardson College in the late 70s, and it was all male. So Dale and my mom were the only females that these couple hundred guys would see on a daily basis. And I was in the dining hall one day, and my mom walked in, and as in the Boston parking lot, She was well-dressed and good posture, just a welcoming smile. And one of the students, one of the guys asked me, "Is your mom always in a good mood?" And well, no, of course not, but she was always gracious enough to not visit her troubles on others. And I think it was such a valuable role she was playing in those days as a vivid reminder to those young guys to strive to improve themselves. So someday they could be as lucky as my dad, and their kids could be as lucky as we were.
As Laura said, my mom did talk to us a lot about this service. Not as specific, often just generalizations, some that we heard over and over again, but one specific was less than an hour. Another was, well, of course, Rex, Jeff, and Dale should all speak. So she made this problem for herself. But I am the last set of remembrances, though, so we're nearly there. I also recognize as the last one, I don't have a lot of brand new themes to introduce about my mother, but I'll take that as a sign that she was pretty consistent and that we all knew her well. One of the phrases that has come back to me repeatedly when thinking about my mom is something that Tom Hanks said in Sleepless in Seattle when he was talking about his late wife, and he said, "She made everything beautiful." Although he was speaking specifically of how she fixed up their house at Christmas, it resonates with me on such a broad scale with my mom. My mom cared about quality. She did struggle with time management. But partly that was because she always took the time to do things really well in a way that showed that she cared. If she brought you a gift, it was always beautifully wrapped. If she made you a turkey sandwich for a spur-of-the-moment lunch, it might well be the best turkey sandwich you had ever eaten. She kept a lovely home, and even as her health failed and she was mostly confined to bed, when I would come over, she would instruct me on just how to set the lamps so that it gave their condo the glow that she found the most appealing. As we prepared for this service over the last couple of weeks, I realized more and more how much she took to heart the Philippians verse that the grandchildren read, reminding you to focus on what's lovely and admirable and excellent. I hadn't known that was her favorite verse until very recently, or one of them. But I have seen her live that my whole life. It wasn't that she was so determined to be pious or superior, but she did have a clear preference for things that she viewed as substantial and worthy of her time. Admittedly, her assessment of what cleared that bar was based on her individual tastes. She was pretty comfortable making that call for herself, though. She did not see much point in fluffy beach reads or video games or, sorry, Adam, fantasy movies. I love and admire those things about her, and I've certainly many times been the beneficiary of her efforts and many skills. But I also love the little ways that she lets that elegance and poise slip a little. I love that my kids were always struck by how loud she laughed. I know there are at least one or two photos in the slideshow that caught Mom in one of those laughs with her generous mouth wide open in delight. I love that for all her dining experience, as Tim noted, one of her go-to treats is a Whataburger chocolate milkshake. I love that she accepted, albeit a little begrudgingly, that while Jeff's children did refer to as Grandma Trish, which she somewhat thought was more respectable and had requested, Rex's never outgrew me mama, and mine stuck to the even more peculiar Mimily. And I love that she set her dignity aside in order to host weekly bachelorette viewing parties for my daughters and nieces for years when they were in high school and college. She would even allow herself to get caught up in the competition, though always, always making sure to point out to her grandchildren that a reality TV dating show is the worst way to find a date. That was the worst way to find a mate, in case anyone is unclear. I'll never be as good a cook as my mom was, or keep as elegant a home, or frankly have as elevated tastes. But that's okay. She didn't judge me for that. And so I try to have that same grace towards myself. But I do hope that I have learned from her to appreciate beauty in all forms and to be intentional about spending time on things that feel worthwhile. And when something strikes me as funny, I hope I'm always willing to open my mouth wide and laugh long and loud.
Before I give the benediction, I would like to invite you, with the family's request, to the Huff Fellowship Hall, which connects this building by the covered walkway for a reception following the postlude. I would also like to ask you to join in a covenant tradition of remaining seated and quiet during the postlude. Pat's family will move to the sanctuary, from the sanctuary to the Fellowship Hall at the beginning of the postlude, but the rest of us will stay seated. So if you're the family, you get to leave at the start of the music. The rest of us stay seated and quiet. Pat cared about how things are done. For the benediction. And so, may we go this day in peace. May we go noticing the beauty. May we go appreciating the details. May we go in love that never, ever, ever dies. Amen.